Hi, this is Craig Gannon from the Smiths, the second guitarist in the Smiths, and I'm talking to David and John.
Walk out to winter, swear I'll be there. Chill will wake you high and dry. You wonder why we met in the summer and walked in the fall. And brothers we talked in the tongue.
Welcome to another edition of the Small Town Boys 80s Archive podcast. Our guest today is Manchester-born guitarist and composer who first began his career while still in his teens in Aztec Camera, and having also played with Terry Hall's band The Colourfield and another popular Scottish band, the Bluebells. Then in 1986, our guest was hired to fill a vacant position in the Smiths, officially becoming known to fans as the Fifth Smith. In addition, he's also worked with the infamous Brick Smith in the band Adult Net, and was also in the initial lineup of post-Happy Mondays troupe Black Grape. Now composing music for film and television, and here to tell us about all of the above and his journey through the 80s, we're very excited to welcome Mr. Craig Gannon. Good evening, Craig.
Hi, David. Hi, John.
Hiya.
How are you doing today, Craig?
Yeah, good. Really well, thanks. How are you both?
Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah.
Do you know what? So many guests never ask how we are.
There's a tally.
So, Craig, tell us about your origin story. Where did you grow up? Where did you come from? Were you from a creative family?
I was born in a place called Stoneclough. I think it's about 9 miles north of Manchester, a suburb of a place called Bury. We lived there till maybe 1971, so I was about 4 or 5. We moved to Salford. My dad grew up opposite Albert Finney. My parents and my brother were really artistic, but not musical at all. They were always great painters and artists, all three of them. My dad did that for a living. He was a painter and decorator as well as a painter and sign writer. And my brother had he went into graphic design. I was always loved music from as far back as I remember, but not artistic as far as painting goes. My writing now is still really scruffy, it always was. But I remember having records around the house, but I can't remember my parents playing records that much.
Right.
I remember in the sort of early 70s, everyone would go on holiday down to Cornwall. There'd be like a 10-hour trip in the car with you, the kids sleeping in the back. And I remember they'd play music then. It was things like Engelbert Humperdinck and Glenn Campbell, or 8-tracks and cars.
Yeah, we had one in the car, yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
It seemed to be the thing then, in the early 70s.
I'm going to sound really pretentious now, but my mum had a Rolls Royce.
Did she?
Yeah, and it had an 8-track player in it.
Oh, did it?
I know. Yeah. Very classy.
I thought we were upper class with a Rover.
Yeah, we had a Rover as well. And it had the 8-track in it. I'd heard Rolls Royces had record players in them. Pull the dashboard down and the record player would be in there.
Oh, yeah. Nothing so decadent, unfortunately.
I mean, the record collection that we had was quite slim, really. There were albums there, but that record collection was influential to me because one of the albums was by a composer called Lalo Schifrin.
Oh,
wow.
Enter the Dragon. And since then, since I heard it, he's been a huge influence on me. Love everything he's ever done. I remember loving music on the TV, sort of those David Attenborough documentaries, and in the era of sort of armchair thriller, and so Man in a Suitcase was a big one as well. I used to look for that, and then obviously The Persuaders. It was things like that, that I was, probably by osmosis, it was going into my brain from the TV rather than the records. I Claudius was another great one.
I clavdivs, as we used to say.
Yeah.
In the early 90s, there was a huge resurgence of all of that sort of Laurie Johnson stuff with the Avengers and the New Avengers and the Professionals and the Sweeney. And I remember vividly going into sort of the Virgin Megastore and places like that and picking up those soundtrack albums.
Yeah.
Just being absolutely blown away and thinking, well, hold on, how is there 3.5 minutes worth of music? Because normally you only get 58 seconds.
And you find out it's the whole thing scored.
Yeah. Oh, and all the incidental stuff is just amazing.
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, I still listen to stuff like that. It's, when I'm not working, I'll go down and Kojak's on at the moment.
Yeah.
The incidental music there is incredible. And as I said with Columbo, these composers knew what they were doing. It's a bit like library or production music now. They do a 30-second theme or a 59-second theme at the same time, while they've got the whole orchestra in there, if it was an orchestral thing. But they were just, I grew up on that. They could play, they could write, and they knew what was going on really musically. And that was sort of my favourite era, really. You know, aside from being a guitar player, which is like I always say, there's two sort of sides to my career, and the influences follow that as well. Guitarist and bands and everything like that. There's the other side, which is obviously related, but orchestras and brilliant musicians and orchestral arrangements. And Burt Bacharach, obviously, was just saying, you know, the early 90s revival, you know, loungecore, I suppose. And
I remember loungecore. I was telling John about it, the ability to go and buy these really strange soundtracks, or the, as you say, library music became quite in. And you're absolutely right. The recordings and the playing and the arrangements, it's just incredible.
It was. Even the covers for the albums, you know, they got it right. You know, the Lounge Lizards on the front, or, you know, some artists like, I'm not sure if you heard of Shag in America, and he's an artist really sort of contemporary then, but in a retro style, just dead colourful. And it just all works really well. And I always thought, if I have a solo album, I'd love to get some designer, some artist to do a cover like that. XTC did a little type of thing with Oranges and Lemons.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's sort of more Beatle-mainly.
When you went to school, that must have been what really turned you into contemporary music, like it did with all of us if we were interested. Talk us through some of the music that would have been inspiring for you through your early teens, I guess.
Yeah, I think around that time at school, obviously the mates I hung around with as well. We'd all get into sort of fads around, and there was this, at the time, probably 75, 76, when I was about 9 or 10, there was a big fad of Bruce Lee, going on from the Enter the Dragon thing. So then we'd start and we'd get onto that for a few months, and then his skateboarding, we'd get onto that. But then the punk thing arrived, and we sort of, we were too young for punk really, 10 or 11 even, but we liked bands like The Clash and Susie and the Banshees. We tried to like everything punk really, but my tastes were more for the musical bands like, The Clash, Buzzcocks. In the Banshees, the noisier bands, they didn't really interest me. So it was around that time, we really got into it. I'm sure, everyone that got into punk and wanted to be a musician, really. So we all managed to get hold of guitars, and at the school we went to, there'd be a drum kit there in the music room and a couple of guitars. So we'd bang about on those, and I took it really, I got obsessed with it, I needed to learn the guitar. I just wanted to be really good at it. And then when there's someone sort of down the road that I heard that was great, I thought, I've got to be better than him. So I just really concentrated on learning everything I could.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it was probably hopeless at the time, but we were just learning all the time from records and playing, in each other's bedroom.
Yeah.
One would be on the bass, I'd be on the guitar, one was singing, one was on the drums. The guy that had a farm around the corner, so he had loads of room. We practiced in his place, but it was, we'd just start bands straight away, really. So I love the Beatles, and some of my other mates love the Beatles. So we had this band where we'd do loads of covers, Beatles covers, but also Clash covers, and a bit later on, Orange Juice. So we were all really into, we loved them. So we'd do Orange Juice covers as well. We all learned together, really. Actually, Pink Floyd was quite a bit of an influence for us all as well. My mate, who I was in a band with, he was called Bendy. His second name was Bendelo. And years later, he joined a band called Interstellar. He's not with us anymore, unfortunately. He was a great guy. His big influence then was Syd Barrett.
Right.
And that was the obvious cool one to go for, but mine was always David Gilmour. Even now, I love David Gilmour's playing. So I think learning in that style and trying to do what he did, no one can get close to what he does anyway. I just think that was a great sort of guitar teacher, really, just learning off all these albums, Pink Floyd albums. And
there's two groups of young musicians. There's those that, as you say, absorb the record collection, or they're heroes, and there are those that do it properly and go and get lessons and learn sheet music and scores. But I was definitely in the former, as yourself, and it's kind of ironic that we would look up to, people like Andy Summers and Johnny Marr and think, Jesus Christ, it's never going to happen. We're just never going to get there. But you do, you just try and absorb as much as you can.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
We're going to play your first choice, which features another great guitarist, Will Sargent. This is Echo and the Bunnymen and Killing Moon.
Fate up against your will through the thick and...
The Killing Moon, Echo and the Bunnymen was used brilliantly in the film Donnie Darko in about 2000. One of my favourite tracks of all time. Craig, tell us your reasoning behind choosing that.
Ever since first hearing Echo and the Bunnymen, I think I just covered the sort of time period, but there are so many bands that I loved at the time. Echo and the Bunnymen were definitely one of them. I remember buying that first album, Crocodiles, on holiday in Cornwall, and the first thing that struck me was the guitar sounds of Will Sargent. Just the lines, it was just incredible to me. On one side, I'll talk about David Gilmour and how technically brilliant he is. I mean, not flash, speedy, or all this gymnastics up the fretboard or anything like that, but amazing guitar player. And then Will Sargent, that was sort of quite minimal, really.
Yeah.
But just meaningful. Everything he played sounded amazing. You know, at the same time, I loved Ian McCulloch's voice. Drums were fantastic, and loved Les Pattinson's bass lines. I just think it sounds like a classic. I think someone hearing that for the first time, it's just an amazing song. One of the reasons we wanted to work with Les Pattinson as well. When I was playing with Terry years later, I thought, yeah, I mean, his name was mentioned by someone. I thought, yeah, I'd love to play with him. What he did was simple and effective, and that's just a great musician to me, and a great bloke as well.
So you joined Aztec Camera in 83. You would have been 17.
16.
16, wow.
16, yeah.
Was this sort of session work that you were getting with them, or were you a bona fide member of Aztec Camera?
Yeah, I was a bona fide member of the band. It made them a 4-piece then. So they were a 3-piece before Just Like Gold and Mattress of White came out.
Yeah.
So then Dave Ruffy joined from the Ruts, another band I liked. And he was a bit older than everyone else. And then there was an advert out. You know, they were looking for another guitar player to make him a 4-piece. So yeah, I was a full member of the band. The only audition I've ever been to in my life.
Wow.
And I got it. And like you say, yeah, I mean, I was 16 years old, not long out of school.
You probably didn't need to audition again, because you could say, well, I was in Aztec Camera. There you go. There's my credentials. I'm done.
It's not as simple as that, is it?
I find it very wonderful, yet incredibly unsettling, that Roddy Frayne was 14 when he wrote Mattress of Wire. Wow. Sat in his bedroom at home, and you think, what kind of brain must you have to have composed that in your head and put that all together? Did you realise at the time, I mean, I'm hoping it wasn't lost on you, but did you realise at the time that you were working with someone who was a bit special?
Oh, God, yeah. Since first hearing Just Like Gold, I can't remember if that was 80 or 81. As soon as I heard it, I knew. It's not an insult, but the postcard scene weren't known for perfectly tuned guitars and some amazing playing on there, but not sort of slick and polished, which is quite why I liked it, really. But as soon as I heard Aztec Camera, I thought, this is, these people can play. How classy the songs were. I thought, this is just incredible. And then, like you say, Mattress of Wire, to me, that was more sophisticated. And then the B-sides, like Orchid Girl, and We Could Send Letters. I thought, yeah, this is really unusual. This is an unusual talent. And then, the sort of information about Aztec Camera was hard to come by.
Yeah.
Because Orange Juice were all over the press at the time, and even bits of the Go-Betweens and Joseph K, you could read about them. But Aztec Camera, they were just sort of, there wasn't that much about them at the time. You'd read little bits saying, Roddy was so young, and then Campbell was only a couple of years older. I thought, what a talent. Even then, you just knew. Genius, really, to be that brilliant at that young age. And obviously, as a guitar player, I think apparently he was always brilliant. He'd sit in his bedroom in East Kilbride, playing along to Wes Montgomery's records perfectly, and same with Django Reinhardt as well. So they were his sort of, his teachers. He grew up learning to play from them.
I always thought there was a kinship in their sound with what Ben Watt was doing in Everything But the Girl around about that time. It was that jazz influence, as you say, Montgomery.
Yeah, that sort of acoustic thing.
Yeah.
Jazzy chords here and there. And there were other bands at the time as well. There was, this sort of, the slick, I don't know if it's the London scene, but there were bands like Animal Nightlife. And,
oh, God, yeah.
And then up here, there was a band called Carmel or Singapore.
Oh. We had them on a couple of weeks ago.
Oh,
fantastic. Yeah.
I liked all stuff like that. There were other things. And a bit later on, Pale Fountains.
Oh, amazing.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Incredible band. When they were acoustic, that was my favourite period of them. But, just great songwriter again with Mick Head.
Yeah.
He was acoustic, and they were influenced by Burt Bacharach again, and classic songwriters. So, yeah, I mean, I really got into that sort of semi-acoustic and jazz-influenced scene, really.
You couldn't bracket Aztec Camera either. That was the beauty of them. They weren't a synth outfit. They weren't a jazz outfit. They weren't an indie outfit. They were there on their own, doing their own thing.
And it's the style of song, the form in the songwriting as well. First chorus, and then middle eight and chorus again. It was like it'd go off on real different oral journeys, really. Roddy knew what he was doing, really, with those chord progressions.
There's one particular track I can't listen to without breaking into tears a little bit, and that's a song called Backwards and Forwards.
Oh, yeah, that was a bit later, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was on Knife.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was,
Yeah, and it's just like, how do you do this?
He carried on. I mean, he brought out that album Love, which was panned by a lot of people, but I loved it. There's a track on that album called Killamont Street, and it absolutely breaks me in half. Yeah. And it's just the picture painting, isn't it? It's that incredible picture painting. That's just the gift of a great songwriter. But I was just thinking, did you have to uproot from Manchester at 16 to Scotland?
No, they were living in London.
Ah, right.
I went to live with Campbell. He was staying in Maida Vale. So I moved into his flat in Maida Vale with someone. So I moved into there for a while. And then I stayed at Roddy's place for a while as well. But I was uprooted from Salford, yeah. But with you mentioning the song that brings a tear to your eye, for me it was Bugle Sounds Again. I think when I started rehearsing with them, just after I joined, Roddy had played the songs, or the whole band had played the songs to me. I'd sit and watch, and to teach me the guitar chords and anything that they wanted me to do. Obviously, I was so inexperienced at the time. And I remember me sitting at the back wall, and the three of them went through the Bugle Sounds Again. And just watching Roddy there, and he was just, better than the record, really. He's just put everything into it. And funny story attached to that, really. Once I'd learned the song, we went out on tour. I think it was a European tour. We did 5 or 6 weeks. So for the Bugle Sounds Again, I didn't come in straight away. I'd come in maybe 30 seconds in, I can't remember. We were all sort of quite fond of a drink in them days. And we'd have our drinks lined up on our amps. Between songs, we'd have a sip of the drinks. And then I remember Roddy starting Bugle Sounds Again on his own. So I'd be, I'd just go to my amp and have a few chugs of a pint. And I think I did this for the first few nights. And one night after the gig, Dave took me aside and said, I'm not being funny. Can I just suggest something? While Roddy's singing this beautiful song, Bugle Sounds Again, it's not really a great look for him to be stuck there centre stage and you to be there throwing back. So totally true. Well, he's such a nice guy anyway.
Was it quite daunting being in the hustle and bustle of London at the age of 16, or were you already quite streetwise anyway?
Yeah, I suppose it was quite daunting. Probably thought I was quite streetwise, but going.
We all think we're indestructible at 16, don't we?
Yeah. I thought I was, but obviously going down there and being with loads of strangers, even though I'd seen them on the TV and I was a fan of theirs, it was still daunting. I think that's where the drink helps a little bit. When you're trying to push yourself forward. I remember having a few drinks at a few sort of quite shy times. Really, they'd always help me out. But I think it was quite a drinking band. And, every night we'd sort of gain it, really.
Scottish, you do surprise me. But they are.
Yeah, but not at the start of Bugle Sounds Again.
Okay.
But no, I was quite timid at the time. I remember Robbie saying to me when we were in America, you don't seem overwhelmed at all. You seem to be really handling it, which I thought was a nice thing to say.
Yeah.
Still pinching myself at the time.
I bet.
Should we play another track?
Oh, is it Talking Heads?
Once in a Lifetime.
Talking Heads, you're not the first person to choose this absolute groundbreaking track. Big one for you, Craig?
Oh, yeah. that doesn't surprise me. I mean, it's just a great song. As soon as I heard this, can't remember where I was, but it's one of those songs, totally commercial, and it's got this sort of bass riff in it that doesn't change at all. That sort of bells loop that I think it was Brian Eno, was it, that produced that?
That's it.
And David Byrne's amazing voice. Always loved his voice. I think most people usually go for Psycho Killer, but for me, it's once in a lifetime.
We don't allow Psycho Killer because it was 79.
Oh, of course, yeah.
The only person that got away with that was Tom Bailey from the Thompson Twins.
Oh, yeah.
He plays that because he's good friends with David Byrne.
Oh, they cover it, don't they?
Yeah, they cover it. Yeah.
When I was with Terry in Japan, we covered it there.
Oh, wow.
I can't remember it being a great version on my part. Once in a lifetime for me is incredible. Still sounds amazing now.
Craig, your next step was to join the Bluebells. Talk us why you left Aztec Camera and how the Bluebells gig came about.
I was in Aztec Camera for most of 1983. And at the end of 1983, I was still very inexperienced in them days. I was still learning to play, and next to a guitar player like Roddy. But around that time, Orange Juice split up.
Right.
So Malcolm Ross was a friend of Roddy's. So I think me and Roddy have spoken about this a few times, and I think he wanted to get Malcolm in. I was a fan of Malcolm Ross from Orange Juice anyway. So it was sort of made sense for them to change over anyway. I mean, Aztec Camera was always moving the musicians around.
Yeah.
After Malcolm, there was another guitar player and a different bass player, and then a drummer as well, and it just changed continuously. So Aztec Camera really was Roddy.
Sure.
That 4-piece was the original band, or Roddy calls it his original band.
He was the poster boy, wasn't he?
He was, yeah.
You look at all the album covers and the singles, it's just his face, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. And it was his whole vision, and it worked. Well, it works for him, obviously. I was 17 when that ended, really. And I remember I was pretty cut up about not being in the band anymore. But I was sort of growing up quick. But after a few weeks, it must have been the start of 84, I had a call from Terry Hall, who actually about 6 months previous to that I'd met in Glasgow, because Aztec Camera were talking about doing a follow-up to Highland Hard Rain, and Terry was going to produce it.
Wow.
So I met him. Anyway, he ended up not producing the next one. It was Mark Knopfler. Terry had just got this band together called the Colourfield, which was a 3-piece. So they had a tube, the program, the tube coming up.
Yeah.
And they wanted someone to play guitar and a bit of keyboards as well. Terry was always a massive fan of Aztec Camera, especially the early Aztec Camera. That was Highland Hard Rain was one of his favourite albums.
Oh.
So because I'd been in Aztec Camera, and maybe because I'd met him as well, he asked me to do it. So I went down to Coventry and started rehearsing, and Simon Wollstonecroft was the drummer this period. So we got friendly. We'd come down to Coventry on Monday mornings, and me and Simon would go back up to Manchester on a Friday, and occasionally go out for a drink. So I did that for a while. We did the tube, and we might have done something else. And then at that time, I got a call from, I think it was the manager from Aztec Camera again. And he said, the band called the Bluebells in Glasgow, they've had to get rid of 2 of the players, the guitar player and the bass player, because of the record label wanted to get some more different sort of professionals. This is why I was told professional musicians in.
Right.
Because they were trying to make it big at that time. So they asked me if I was interested. It was never like, do you fancy coming up for an audition or see if we get on or anything. It was like, straight away, do you want to do this? Do you want to join the band? So I went up to Glasgow and met the Bluebells, and actually met the guitarist that was with them as well, who was, it must have been hard for him, but I remember going out for a few drinks with him. He was such a nice guy. And him saying all the time, if you need any help, learning these songs or anything.
Wow.
It was just, everyone was great. So I ended up joining the band. And to be honest, I think with that being Glasgow, I think they might like to drink as well.
This might be a bit of an impertinent question, and I apologise if it is, but between the ages of sort of 15 and 19, whether you're male or female, I think it's a real world of discovery, and we're certainly discovering who we are. And do you feel as though being sort of 16 years old and thrust into this limelight of these very sort of highbrow popular bands, do you think you lost a bit of your teenage years, or were you just enjoying them in a different way?
Definitely don't feel like I lost anything at all. No, I was dying for the opportunity to do something like that. Growing up with my mates and playing in bands with them, it wasn't struggling, it was learning, we loved it. I don't feel like I'd missed out at all on my teenage years. All I ever wanted to do really was to be a guitar player. And, I wasn't desperate to be a songwriter in those days, even though I was writing songs. It was to be a guitar player in a band that I loved and, loved the music of. And I felt I gained so much. And I grew up really quickly, I think.
In the Bluebells, were you involved in Sisters, or was that recorded before you joined? You were?
Just as I joined, I think a few weeks later, we went up to Inverness to start recording Sisters. I mean, there were a few demos about which Elvis Costello had produced a few things. Young at Heart had already been recorded. So I didn't play on that version. I played on a later version, but there were quite a lot of songs that Elvis Costello produced that we re-recorded again for Sisters. Will She Always Be Waiting and Everybody's Somebody's Fool. We spent, it felt like we were up there months in Inverness. It was a residential studio, freezing cold all the time. I can't remember going out of the place.
Inverness, you're basically in Norway, aren't you?
Yeah, but that's it. The wind's over there, and it felt like you were in the middle of Norway, really. I remember opening the windows every night, and there was just this, smell of cows and pigs and everything, and obviously, the great fresh air.
People who always say to you, go outside, enjoy the colours of the world. And I'm thinking, what, white or grey?
Yeah, well, being in Manchester, it's just grey. It's just miserable. Actually, the sun came out a couple of hours ago up here. So it was,
for how long?
It was about 20 minutes.
Oh, wow. Well, okay.
Things. People, say they love the doom and gloom of Manchester and industrial Manchester scene and all that. To me, I never did. I've always hated the gloom, and it's just, it doesn't make me feel good. I'm always a sun person. The doom and gloom doesn't do it for me. It's nice occasionally, a bit of a romantic way, walking in the park or by the sea.
I think we're going to play a cheeky double.
I knew he was going to say that.
I think we're going to play the Bluebells, and then we'll play the Smiths.
Panic on the streets of Birmingham. I wonder to myself.
Well, we heard Red Guitars from the Bluebells, which is a track nobody plays, and I haven't heard in a long while. Tell us a little bit about that, Craig. But we also heard the Smiths. I could have picked anything really, but we chose Panic, and that will lead us into our next story. But over to you.
Well, Red Guitars, completely forgotten about that song. That's one of the songs on Sisters that we recorded up in that cold place I was just telling you about, Inverness. I remember a bit about the mixing. I remember recording some guitars for it that were played on an old battered copy Telecaster that I had. I don't think I've heard it since the final mixes, really.
Wow.
I remember the first mix, just towards the end, I think it was a big long run out. Towards the end, they started slowing it down, and it slowed down over about a minute, and it just came dead stop. Sort of quite a good idea, really. A bit of a gimmick, really. The complaints people were saying, all that energy is just falls apart, and it just comes to a dead stop. Colin Fairley and Rob Andrews produced it, who were from Nick Lowe's stable. Yeah, great. It was great times. And then Panic. That was the first thing that we recorded with the Smiths. We recorded that in, I think it was called Livingstone Studios. There's me and Johnny both playing electric guitars, but also putting a few acoustic parts down on there as well. Remember, we're facing each other playing the acoustics. Yeah, that was my first sort of recording with the Smiths.
So what happened? Do you get another phone call? And then, do you want to be in the Smiths? Yeah, all right then. How did that work?
I've heard of them.
Yeah. Well, like I say, I played with Colourfield, got to know Simon Wollstonecraft well. He'd stopped playing with the Colourfield and I think he played with a few other bands. I played with the Colourfield again in 1986. The drummer was Gary Dwyer from Teardrop Explodes. So it's great to see these people again, obviously Terry and Carl and Toby. They had this big tour of Britain arranged, wanted me to play on it and then probably keep playing with them in the future. We rehearsed in Liverpool a lot. I can't remember why, but me and Terry had to get the train back to Manchester because Terry was staying near Manchester at the time. And I got a phone call probably when I was meeting up with Simon. He kept saying to me, Johnny Marr wants to meet up with you. And knowing he was a friend of the Smiths, since the early days. And I was, like I say, I was rehearsing at the time with the Colourfield. And Simon kept saying to me, he's going to give you a call soon and wants you to come over to his house. Simon sort of said, I think he might be looking at you joining the band, really. It's a total surprise to me because, it's been known that I didn't know much about the Smiths before that time. Mm-hmm. I'd heard the singles, I'd seen them on Top of the Pops and I knew that they were a hugely talented band and, great image, great frontman and, all this, everything I'd heard by them. But I wasn't one of those people that had looked into everything they'd done up to that point until that time. So I started listening to them, and then I got a phone call one day when I was sat at my parents' house, and it was Johnny saying, "Do you fancy coming over to my house in South Manchester?" So I was just, wow, this is really exciting. It's incredible. So he said he'd come and pick me up. He came to pick me up a few days later, and took me over to his house, and he took me up to his studio upstairs and playing with these demos and things like Big Mouth, Strikes Again demo, gave me everything that Smiths have ever done and the few sort of alternate mixes of things and cassettes of different things, which I think I've still got most of somewhere. And we ended up playing guitars together, acoustic guitars, and I was really nervous. I've been with people that I'd thought were famous up to that point. Aztec Camera to me were famous. And Orange Juice were famous. I played Edwin Collins the year before. I was a massive fan of his. Yeah. So traveling, over Europe and America, I'd meet so many famous people. The Smiths was a phenomenon. I was a huge Beatles fan, but it was like the best band since the Beatles, really. Yeah. So all that type of thing, that made me nervous.
Yeah, sure.
Trying to hold it together.
Can you put something to bed for us this evening?
Yeah.
It's urban myth. And so many people sort of say, it was about this person, it was about that person.
Oh my God, he's going there.
I'm going there, Craig. And you don't have to answer the question, but hang the DJ. Who the hell was it about?
Well, I'd read that it was about Steve Wright.
Oh, you see, now I had heard this, but then Morrissey put this beautiful tribute to Steve Wright up on his social media page shortly after he passed away.
Can't remember anyone saying anything at the time.
Well, there are fans that put together these conspiracy videos on YouTube, say it's about the other fella with the rings who isn't about anymore.
The one whose name we can't say because we'll get cancelled.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it could be.
And it's one of those things, if anybody was going to write subliminally and cleverly about it, it would have been Stephen. And no one would have been brave enough,
Yeah, it could have been. The thing is, when the first anybody heard those lyrics was when Morrissey was putting his vocal down.
Right.
I was there when he was putting his vocal down, and obviously Johnny was there as well. And nobody heard the lyrics up until that point, and apparently that was the way it always went with.
Right. Okay.
Anyway, because Morrissey was always given a backing track on a cassette. We'd recorded the backing track for what turned out to be Panic at Mike's place because we were rehearsing there. We played through Panic a couple of times, recorded it, and Morrissey was given the cassette of that to write to. I can't remember asking anyone at the time, what it was about. I can't remember asking Morrissey what it was about.
There must have been an irony for Morrissey to go on to Top of the Pops and sing Panic and know what it was about, and no one else did.
Yeah. Well, it was a bit of an uproar. I remember Elvis Costello and the Attractions went on there between one of the drum fills there, the drummer Pete Thomas, who I played with later on an album. He just, on Top of the Pops, he made this weird face. I can't remember what song it was, but apparently there was uproar in the studio.
Didn't he sit there with his arms folded as well? Wasn't that one of his things?
I didn't see that one, but he could have, and I suppose think me turning my back on the cameras, which I used to do on top of them, probably annoyed them as well, but I wasn't banned from it.
So they worked separately. They didn't write together, sort of Lennon and McCartney style.
As far as I knew, that's the way they did it. Yeah, and They didn't do demos either. Yeah, they just went straight in and recorded. That style worked for them, and
yeah. I think maybe that it might explain some of the uniqueness around the songs. I read something similar about the Manic Street Preachers, that Nicky Wire writes all the lyrics, even though he doesn't sing.
Yeah,
and James Dean Bradfield has to write the music and is forced to make the words fit because he doesn't write them, and that gives them a uniqueness. So I suppose, there's these different approaches.
I mean, if it's not going to work that way, obviously, people will look for a different way of doing it.
Sure,
it obviously does work that way. I was just so used to being in bands that did demos.
What would you have considered if there was a difficulty in being in the Smiths generally, or was it all sweetness and light and gladioli?
It's been written about so many times, where people never seem to get it right. Since I joined the band, got on with everyone straight away.
Right.
I was there for, I think, most of '86.
Mm-hmm.
We got on all the time, up until probably a couple of weeks before my end with them, the end of the last British tour. Been more made out of things that just, didn't happen by people that weren't there.
Yeah, of course.
By people that were there as well. It's just that it ended in a bad way, a trial, a court case that was going to happen, which didn't happen eventually. It's just unfortunate the way it ended that way.
I think we should play another track, and then we should come back with John's favourite question. But this is The Associates and Party Fears 2.
The Associates, Party Fears 2, another one of those tracks that's been chosen about 3,987 times on this show. Craig, tell us why you chose it.
I mean, it's just another song that you just think, it feels like it's always been there. You never get tired of listening to it. I haven't heard it for a few weeks, but, it's Billy Mackenzie's incredible vocals. Just remember seeing it on the Top of the Pops and hearing that amazing piano riff. It's just a brilliant song. I couldn't tell you what it was about. The lyrics are completely secondary to me. It's, everything's musical, really. Not everything, but, I listen to it sonically. I suppose, a comparison could be an early 70s Bowie song. And I'm sure Billy Mackenzie was a huge Bowie fan. That voice is just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's unmatched, I think.
Of all time.
I don't know how true this is, but I read somewhere that the track was all about the anxieties of having to go out to social affairs that you don't want to go to.
It might be.
Which would make sense lyrically to a degree.
No wonder I love it so much. It's probably in there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, obviously, Alan Rankine's gone now as well.
Yeah,
I know, it's such a shame.
A few years ago, we were going to do something together. We'd speak on the phone quite a bit, but we never really got anything together.
I just think it's that line, I'll have a shower and phone my brother up. Only an Englishman Scottishman could have written that line. And again, it's picture painting. Whatever it's about, you're in that picture, and then you're waiting for the next scene where he smashes the cup and it talks about the person drinking too much, and you're in that little sort of play for today almost, aren't you?
It took me years to realise that he says, and it turns to shark.
I thought he said turns to shark.
Us turns to shark. I always thought he said he turns to shark.
Love you, Billy.
Craig, this leads us on nicely to my favourite part of the evening, which is a question that we ask all of our guests. I'm hoping a man as travelled and as knowledgeable as yourself, I'm hoping you're going to come up with gold on this one.
Oh, God, so do I.
Craig Gannon of the Smiths, the fifth Smith, do you have a ghost story?
A sort of paranormal story, not so much a ghost story.
Okay. That's fine. Go for it.
Used to holiday in a caravan in Cornwall in the 70s. I remember being in the bunk and looking up through the night, and I could see ghosts wandering about the caravan. And I'm sure it was pretty real, but I think it was just my imagination. So aside from that, there is something that I think I've mentioned before to a journalist. I'm not sure if it's been written about. I was in the band The Adult Net with Brick Smith, and we recorded an album called The Honey Tangle. Clem Burke was the drummer. Craig Leon was producing it with Castle Webb, who produced Clem Burke and Blondie and the Ramones and loads of great bands. We recorded in various studios around London, and it came time to record my guitars. So we did that in Jimmy Page's house. Jimmy Page had a house, and half of it was his studio. It's called Soul Studios. Does that ring a bell?
Oh, God. Is this the house that he bought from Aleister Crowley?
Well, it wouldn't surprise me.
I think it is.
Right, whatever you're about to say is true.
Yeah.
Go on, carry on.
Well, this was in Berkshire somewhere.
Yeah, that'll be the
I
one.
think it's near Marlow, about 2 or 3 weeks. Obviously, an amazing place. Obviously, it was residential. I had the bedroom on the ground floor next to the kitchen, which had a passageway with a glass door there, which opened out onto this big patio. What we saw on the first day there, this huge pentagram on there. You know, this river that went around this big stream, and the river went under my bedroom. This huge water wheel outside one of the windows. And it's a beautiful place, and there was bits of Jimmy Page all over the place. You know, things like wah wah pedals and so many different things which I used on some of the record. Apart from there being a huge amount of spiders there and massive insects, which I'm totally scared of.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd opened the curtains and there'd be clusters of spiders falling. You know, I think it was only 21 at the time. This was just after the Smiths. So I was totally stressed because of that, because of the spiders continuously. You know, you'd look somewhere on a wall and there'd be a big spider there. Maybe Aleister Crowley had left them if that was his house. But every night around dawn, or every morning around dawn, there'd be this sort of loud tapping on the window, which had wake me up. So I think, what the hell is that? And it sounded like a branch of a tree tapping against the window. But I'd get out and look out the windows, and there was nothing there. I didn't know what was going on. It seemed to be the same time every night for the following few days that this tapping had happened. And I wasn't really scared. I didn't know. I didn't even know who Aleister Crowley was at the time, but I did know about Jimmy Page's dealings with the occult. Obviously, the producer and people would tell me about these different stories. But just one morning after this tapping, I opened the door to the bedroom and walked at the side of the kitchen towards the patio. And it was huge. It was either a crow or a rook. I mean, he was massive. He seemed like 2 feet high. And it was him tapping on the patio window, just tapping there. So I thought, oh my God, what the hell is going on here? It was like something out of, these old Vincent Price.
Like a Hammer horror, yeah. Oh, yeah. Man.
And it was just totally scary. It freaked me out. So I went back to bed. I mean, it saw me. I didn't open the door, I don't think. Saw me. It just walked off back into the night.
How far away from the other people in the house were you? Were you sort of at one wing and they were in the other, or?
Well, we were in the residential wing, which was, I was in the downstairs bedroom.
Right.
The upstairs bedroom. She didn't notice it at all. No one heard anything. I think it was just me and Brick staying in the whole place.
Wow.
Just, throughout the day we'd record and there'd be people there. There'd be a secretary there, and obviously the producer, his wife, and engineers, gardeners, cooks, things like that. But just at night, it was just me and Bricks. We had our own bedrooms. She didn't hear a thing. Strange thing. And with this pentagram, this was where the bird was. It
That's
could have been a pair.
Oh, dear.
But as soon as it saw me, then I didn't see it after that. So I think that can class as paranormal, really.
Do you know what? By association to all of that, yeah, definitely.
Do you consider yourself to be not necessarily a religious person, but do you consider yourself to be quite a spiritual person? Do you believe that there's energies and things that we can't quite explain?
Yeah, I think so. At that time, I remember thinking that there was. Not just because of that, strange thing with the bird, but, things like recorded, we'd record guitars and then there'd be this weird sound on one of the tracks, and if you'd solo it, you couldn't find out where this sound was. And I just think it's just one of those vibes that so many creative people have been together, over the years there. They create this thing, and that's I'm not religious at all, not one bit. You know, I'm not a sort of New Age spiritualist type person at all. But yeah, I think there's definitely things there that can't be explained at all.
I very much believe in a thing called stone tape theory, which is where walls of buildings can absorb sounds from the past.
Yeah.
And the walls are forever sort of resonating those things from the past. So like people say they go into these old Victorian inns and it's modern day, but they can hear tankards chinking and groats being thrown on wooden tables and things like that. You know.
Yeah. You know, I've got an open mind about it all, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's part of your imagination when you do go in these places.
I'd say that's a contributing factor, definitely.
I think I do. Sometimes I do believe in things like that. Sometimes I don't.
So let's play Dying Day by Orange Juice. There's that line in the David Bowie song Quicksand where he says, you're the written lies on Garbo's eyes, something about Crowley's divine symmetry, and it is all about the pentangle.
At the old theatre I used to be a member of, they had a basement area which were holding cells from when it used to be a court, and we used to store bits of props and what have you down there, big furniture, wardrobes, beds, etc.
Yeah.
And we went in there one day and there'd been this homeless guy living in there. No qualms with that. It's warm. It's dry. You know, he can do what he wants. It's not a problem. Until we noticed these very strange ritualistic candles that had been being burnt down there, which sort of counted down days of certain weird things in Pentecostal calendars and stuff like that. And he'd drawn a pentangle on the wall.
Orange Juice, Dying Day. You've already mentioned Orange Juice and Edwyn Collins and Postcard in Scotland. So it was obvious you had to have an OJ track in there, right?
Yeah, oh, definitely. Yeah, I mean, this song, Dying Day, when I first got that album, You Can't Hide Your Love Forever by Orange Juice, I think Dying Day was my favourite song straight away. They all turned into my favourite songs. I loved everything Orange Juice did in that period. Obviously, learning guitar all the time throughout that period, I was also learning to write songs. And I think just the structure of that song and the chords being used was a great lesson for me as well. It was a classic structure of a great song to me. And as a guitar player as well, those arpeggios, open string or one or two open strings was a big influence on me down the line. You know, and it's still things that I use today. Those sort of musical devices, really. Great guitar parts in that, and amazing bass playing that by David McClymon. The bass lines on that record and the follow-up repeal, I'd say they were up there with Andy Rourke's playing.
Right. Wow. That is compliment.
Incredible bass players. I think I learned every part of those two albums, actually, of Orange Juice's albums, even all the vocals. And the only thing I couldn't play was the drums. But I knew all the patterns and I knew all the bass lines and the guitar parts, and I could sing them. I'm a terrible singer, but I could get my way through them. Played with him a few times in 1985. This was with Paul Quinn as well, who was in Borgia Borgia.
Yeah, I love Paul Quinn. Yeah.
Did a couple of records, a couple of radio sessions.
Craig, tell us about Cradle. I was late to the party with this, but I've since bought the 45 and we played it on the Rail Radio show the other day. I can't believe I didn't know about it at the time. Rough Trade 7, was it 1987?
87, yeah. It'll have been the start of 87, I think. Yeah, I mean, I'd forgotten about that, actually. What happened was the band Easterhouse.
Oh, wow, yeah. You're the only other person I know in the world that said that out loud other than me. Brilliant.
Well, they were friends of mine. Ivor was a friend. He was a guitarist. His brother, Andy, was the singer. They just split up. Ivor and the rest of them left. I think Andy carried on being Easterhouse with different musicians. But Ivor wanted to start another band. So he asked me to do it, because obviously I wasn't in the Smiths in 87. 4 of us together, bass player and a drummer, and Ivor found this other singer called Andy Housley. And the single was going to be on Rough Trade, so we recorded it in, I think it was at Amazon Studios in Liverpool. Ivor wrote it. Ivor was always writing loads of different songs at the time. There wasn't much scope for me, really, to be writing. I'd sort of decided to play with them because I knew them I wasn't on the lookout for joining another band at that time, but I don't think I was doing anything else. So I did that for a while. Like I say, they were friends, and it was a guaranteed release with it being on Rough Trade.
Sure, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I haven't heard it for so long, but I think just after that, we did a couple of gigs. I think we played in Sheffield and Leeds, and then I left to start playing with the Adult Net.
Yeah.
Well, that leads us in quite nicely, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I will say the Cradle track, I think musically very strong. Vocally, I wasn't quite sure. I mean, I liked the style, but it wasn't the greatest vocal performance I'd ever heard. But musically, I loved it. I loved the guitar work on it.
I'll have to listen to that again. Yeah, Andy, the singer, I mean, he was a great guy. From what I remember, he had quite a northern accent, even.
Yeah, I mean, I liked his tone. He had that deep sort of, I don't know, Ian Curtis tone, but tuning might have been a bit of a afterthought. I don't know.
Are we going to play it?
We'll play it.
Sometimes you're better off dead. There's a gun in your hand and it's pointing at your head. You think you're mad, too unstable, kicking in chairs and knocking down tables in a restaurant in a West End town. Call the police, there's a madman around, running down underground to a dive bar in a West End town.
Craig just heard there for the first time in years a Cradle track, and also we played in with another one of his choices, which was West End Girls by the Pet Shop Boys. They'd had a couple of singles before West End Girls. They tried something different with West End Girls. Nothing was working. And then they came along with that sound and they were game changers. Craig, tell us why you chose that.
No, first of all, I didn't hear it the first time it was released. And then when it became a massive hit, I heard it then. I was obsessed with the guitar still at that period, and probably listening to every guitar band in the world, really, except, interestingly, not so much the Smiths at the time, as I mentioned earlier. That came later. But when I heard West End Girls, and I sort of knew who Neil Tennant was, because I'm sure he used to come round to the record company. He used to hang around in London.
He probably reviewed you at some point.
Yeah, he was the editor of Smashes, wasn't he?
A brilliant song, and every time I hear it now, it gets the hair standing up on the back of you.
Yeah.
It's not the fastest track in the world, but you put it on in the middle of a dance set and people just go for it, don't they?
It's a very comfortable record to dance to.
Yeah.
Amazing production and great vibe to the whole song.
You were sort of then involved with Adult Net with Brick Smith at the end of the 80s. At the end of the 80s. How did that manifest?
It was another phone call again, actually. But this time...
You had the hottest phone in Manchester, didn't you?
After the Smiths, I still stayed in touch. So I'd speak to Mike Joyce occasionally on the phone. This was still 87. One day he rang me up, said, he's been in touch with Brick Smith, or Brick Smith's been in touch with him. She wanted to get himself, Andy Raw, and me in to do this new record for Polydor or Chrysalis or something like that. I thought, well, yeah, I mean, I'd love to play with you and Andy again. And I didn't know much about Brick Smith. I knew, obviously, she was married to Mark Smith. So I went up to Mike's and met everyone there again, and did a bit of playing with Bricks. Everyone got on well with each other, so we'd started rehearsing, and she decided she wanted to do a gig first. I think it was the ICA in London. Actually, it was when those massive storms were.
Yeah.
87. So we did this gig. I can't remember much about the gig. Few people there. It wasn't packed out or anything. I think it went okay. And then Mike and Andy dropped out for some reason. I can't remember if they were doing something else. So that just left me and Bricks. So things moved forward. I kept playing with her, rehearsing with her, and started to meet up with Craig Leon, who was going to produce the Honey Tangle, the album. And then I found out that Clem Burke was going to take over on the drums, which I was really excited. So he came over from America, and we just all started hanging out in London, and then started recording backing tracks for the Honey Tangle, various studios, and then that took me up to the Rook at Jimmy Page's place. Really professional vibe. I liked the record. I remember liking all the guitar parts that I was coming up with, and guitar styles and the style of the production, everything about it. Was really enjoyed doing it. few weeks after that, got a call from one of Morrissey's people asking me to work with him again. So I had to say to Bricks, I'm going to have to finish working with you, really, because it was I couldn't do the two things at the same time, and there was more opportunity with Morrissey at that time. When I got this phone call, Mike and Andy had been asked to do it as well. So Morrissey wanted to get me, Mike and Andy together again. So I think it was probably Stephen Street that rang me. And we just got together again down at the Woolhall studio where Smiths did the last album and started recording the follow-up to Viva Hey, which Stephen Street had been writing songs with Morrissey. So he'd had Suede Head and a couple of other singles. So we recorded, I think it was about 12 or 13 songs, but they started getting dropped one by one. There were things like Lucky List and Michael's Bones. I think they were released on various compilations or albums. So I know there are a few things like that. Bed Took Vows, another song I think might have been released. I've got a cassette with all the unreleased things. It turned out not to be the follow-up to Viva Hey, because obviously there wasn't enough songs for it, but Playboys and Interesting Drug, which we played on, came out. I love doing it as well.
Did it feel good playing together again as a trio?
It felt great, playing with Mike and Andy again as well. As soon as I joined the Smiths, I'd loved all their playing. Johnny, Mike and Andy, and obviously Morrissey's vocals. To be playing with them again was amazing. Played really well together. I remember we did that Rush Together gig at Wolverhampton, which I can't bear to watch or listen to or anything, because it was just a sort of shambles,
right? From
what I remember. I think we had a few rehearsals at the Woolhall, me, Mike and Andy. Morrissey listening to us, and Morrissey loved how he sounded. Roll on a few weeks later over Christmas, stayed in touch with Morrissey, go over to his house over in Altrincham where he was living at the time. He asked me to come up with song ideas.
Wow.
I think him and Stephen Street had maybe parted ways at that time, because obviously Stephen's songs had been fallen by the wayside. And I think he asked Andy as well to come up with ideas. So it was going well, but then again at the same time I'd taken proceedings forward because I wasn't paid in the Smiths,
right?
What I was promised. So I had to take out court proceeding. So that's what made it awkward. And Mike and Andy were doing that at the same time as well. So it was a really strange situation.
Yeah.
So if I wasn't doing that, it could have carried on, and I could have carried on writing. But I had to carry on with that, so I couldn't work with Morrissey again after that.
No, sure.
I think maybe that's the similar story with Mike and Andy.
Yeah.
He didn't work with him again. It wasn't really spoken about that much, really. It was just, a quick thing. So then I was thinking about trying to get into film and TV music, because that had been in my mind for the last few years. So I think I went to college for about a year at music college to try and do something serious, learn the theory, classical way, really.
Did you want to be the next Roy Budd?
Or Lalo Schifrin?
Yeah, Lalo Schifrin, definitely. I love Roy Budd. I love what he's done. He wasn't up there with Lalo Schifrin or...
Oh, I don't know.
He did some great things. Roy Budd was a child prodigy, jazz pianist. He probably could read and write music. But I remember there was a story about him asking Tony Hatch, how would you write a clef for a viola? So since hearing that, I thought, if you don't know that really, I'm not sure you could be as genius as Schifrin. But yeah, everything he wrote, I love his scores. Roy Budd's scores, they were great.
Well, I think if you listen to, I don't know if you've ever heard it before, but the Charles Bronson film, The Stone Killer from 1971.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, the soundtrack to that is amazing. But talking of Tony Hatch, did you know that Tony Hatch has got a Chelmsford connection? Because that's where we're from.
Okay.
He used to joint own Chelmsford City Football Club.
Joint own?
Yeah. Tony Hatch. I'm going to be massively wrong, and the Chelmsford Illuminati will probably come and hunt me down. But he used to have something to do with Chandler's Building Merchants as well. I know. Tony Hatch was like this incredible, but he had these fingers in so many pies. It was unbelievable.
The only thing I can link to that is that Paul McCartney and Wings regularly used to cover the Crossroads theme. They used to play it live.
Yeah.
How brilliant's that?
Yeah.
Craig's literally just about to talk about... I'm lost now. So how long did it take you to start working in that field? And
well, it was sort of because I'd always loved film and TV music. It was always in my mind that one day I'd love to get into it. I didn't realise how hard it would be to get into it. I thought maybe just someone from Hollywood rings you up if you're a guitarist, because that and asks you to score a film. That Sean Connery's just done. It never happened that way. So when I get some time, think from maybe 89, 90, I just started getting all the books out of the library and buying as many film scores as I could, just learning as much as possible this really sort of heavy theory. I mean, some of it was quite easy, and then, but you know, the more advanced stuff was just, you know, sometimes your head would be killing you. But I was just determined, I was obsessed with it, and I thought, you know, all my favourite film composers knew how to conduct, they knew how to score for whole orchestra. You know, most of them were great arrangers, so they knew everything about all the instruments of the orchestra. So there was this massive learning curve that had set my sights on. But around that time as well, around 1990, maybe 91, Terry rang me up again. We'd been in touch, you know, obviously stayed in touch over the years. And Terry rang me up and said, you know, he'd always be swapping about and starting another band and doing some different projects. And he always wanted to stay fresh. So he said, I want to start my solo career now. I want to do an album. And have you got any songs? So I just got some songs together quickly on, 4-track on Porter Studio, and, you know, just did some really rough guitar-based demos, really, and sent them to him. And he pretty much loved everything. We were just in touch all the time. And I'd go down to his house in Kenilworth, outside Coventry. And we'd just do writing sessions there together and put demos together, you know, on the tape machine, and we just took it from there. You know, most of them were on his first solo album, and then he had a project on the go at the same time as that, or just after that, with Dave Stewart.
Vegas.
That's it, yeah. Which I loved, that single that they had out.
Yeah.
So while he was doing that, I sort of fell into a band with Sean Ryder, which turned out to be Black Grey.
Oh, wow.
Happy Mondays had just split up.
Yeah.
And Sean wanted to put a new band together, so he asked me to do it. Paul Ryder, his brother. Gavin Whelan from James, the drummer from James.
Yeah.
He was the first drummer. And Kermit was there. And percussionist, great drummer called Jed Lynch. So it was us, just first few sessions really was, having drunken chats about it in town. And then we started rehearsing at Sean's house, and it was good. I really enjoyed it, doing that. You know, I'd known Sean and Paul for ages. Because when I played with the Colourfield, going back 4 or 5 years, we did the Colourfield tour, and Terry had asked Happy Mondays to support. So I knew they were from Salford, so I got to know them then. So it was great seeing them again, and we were rehearsing all the time. At the same time, I was going to this music college, did about a year there. And then Terry rang me up again and said, just did that thing with Dave Stewart, and, I want to get back into doing this album. You know, some great songs there. Let's get together. So I had to finish playing with Sean and Paul and them to do it with Terry, because obviously, you know, I've written these songs with Terry.
Yeah.
And I just felt so close to Terry at that period anyway. And we just went, started looking towards recording his first album. Ian Brodie was brought on to produce first album, and he wrote a couple of the songs on there as well. Like I said before, Les Pattinson was asked to play the bass on it. It's, Chris Sharrock as well from
Icicle Works.
Icicle Works, and the Lars as well.
Yeah.
And so many other bands.
Your phone book, man.
That's a dream job right there.
I mean, it was great, seeing, Chris Sharrock turning up there at the studio, because we hadn't met Chris or Les before that. And Les turned up, I think it must have been snowing out. He had these huge gloves on and just walked in there and sat down, and just like an old mate coming back. I'd seen Bunny Men, when I was so young, 11 or 12, on TV, and there was this guy, Les Pattinson, this famous bass player there, with these huge gloves on, and I think he had a woolly hat on again, and I thought, wow, and he was just like, like I say, an old mate coming from the pub. Yeah. So just instantly got on. He was just love Les. He was a brilliant bloke. And then Chris turned up as well, and he set his kit up, and we'd just start playing. He'd learn the songs on cassette. I'd go over to his house in Southport, actually, and just sit with Les in his living room playing through the songs. So he'd learn them that way. I don't think he'd touched the bass for a few years at that point. And he's not one of those bass players where he knows that you can use a flatted fifth or, a sharp 9 or he doesn't really know what the notes are or anything. It's just pure instinct.
Yeah.
But he just fell back into that sort of hypnotic pounding bass, great lines. I'd obviously seen Chris play again on the TV and heard what he'd done with the Icicle Works. But I'd asked a few people, what's Chris Sharrock like? And they were going, oh, he's absolutely incredible. He's an incredible drummer. I played with some great drummers up to that point. I played with Glenn Burke and Dave Ruffy, both amazing drummers. As soon as Chris just sat down, he was just unbelievable. But I mean, to this day, it's probably my favourite drummer of all time. Just starting to rehearse the songs there in the live room in the studio, and then putting the tracks down.
I mean, Chris Sharrock plays in Noel Gallagher's band now, doesn't he? I think.
Does he? I know he played with High Flying Birds.
Yeah, that's it. I saw a live thing on TV, and
still doing it.
Sharrock was incredible. He was the reason why I was in a band for 20 odd years, and he was the reason why my drummer started playing. A little bit of Keith Moon, but mostly Chris Sharrock,
Yeah. It's a shame really that I'm not played in bands since then. Well, with him or even with Les as well. I carried on playing with Terry throughout the years, but other people took over and different musicians. But
Craig, it's a bit of a loaded question, maybe not a very deep and clever one, but what would be your proudest moments of your career?
There have been a lot. I mean,
it sounds like you had dozens.
I think he's every time his phone rang.
Yeah, every time the phone rang. Oh, I'm so proud.
Till I got an answer machine, which broke.
That's because it was full. You didn't change the tape.
Yeah, there've been so many moments of them that I did. I think basically joining Aztec Camera in those early days when I was 16.
Yeah, incredible.
Because if you hadn't done that, maybe things wouldn't have panned out as they had.
Yeah, I mean, I was desperate to make a goal. I'm trying to be a professional musician. Even in those days, it was so hard. So getting that break there and joining this incredible band and playing with such an amazing guitar player as Roddy, which I learned so much off. And every time I've seen him since, and he's got the guitar out, I'm going to go home now and smash my guitars up. Still think that. So I think joining that band, then joining Aztec Camera, and just going off on a big tour, even up to this point. I mean, I'm not, it's not like I'm in a band and I'm on TV and everything, but I'm doing what I love doing by still writing. I'm still playing.
I thought you meant talking to a couple of Burks in a studio in Chelmsford. I thought that's what.
That's a big highlight.
You heard it here first, folks.
Different tangent. So you never really know what's happening.
Right.
No, and that's what we
all the time.
That's what we hope to achieve with this show, is that we don't aim to catch people off guard, but we sort of naturally do, because we're not your typical Fleet Street journalists who are looking for the next angle. We just want to talk to people and find out what the stories were. That's it.
John and I are fans. At the end of the day, we're music fans and we collect records, and you had to come on this podcast because you've been involved in so many things that we love, and you've worked with so many of my heroes. My musical landscape would be a very different place if you weren't in it. I mean that.
That's really kind of you. I think we're probably influenced by the same bands and genres.
Yeah.
I grew up. My mother's record collection was a miracle to behold, because you'd have things like Led Zeppelin and AC/DC, but then right next to them you'd have the Hollies and Sailor. And you just, it was a real hodgepodge, but that's what made me appreciate different types of music. And art is subjective, isn't it? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether you're listening to the Thompson Twins or some sort of death metal arrangement. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Look, we're coming to the end of the show, and we really appreciate your time, Craig. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure to speak to you both.
Oh, thank you. No, that's very kind. Tell us what you're currently working on. Tell us what the future holds for Craig.
At the moment, I'm playing with Alan White, Morrissey's co-writer for years and years, along with Boz Bora. Alan and Boz took over as guitar players after me, Mike and Andy finished with Morrissey, I think about a year later or something. So they stayed for years and years, worked with him for years and years. But Alan's trying to get his solo career off the ground. So just before Christmas, we did a few gigs in Ireland. We've been recording remotely. He lives in LA, so we've been recording remotely quite a bit. I'm just starting to come up with some ideas for him, song ideas. We're going to do some writing together. Looking at sort of late summer or autumn, doing a tour over here, maybe in California.
I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been sorted out. I think Alan's sorting it out with his manager and the booking agent. Hoping to hear about that. I've just been asked to score a film. I'm hoping to see the rough cut off any time. I've worked with the director a few times, done about 3 or 4 films with him. At the moment, in the middle of writing loads of production music. I think in the last couple of years, well, since lockdown, really, I've concentrated on writing production music.
What are we ending on, Dave?
We're ending with a track by Stephen Morrissey called "The Last of the Famous International Playboys."
Is there a particular reason for that?
That would have been the period that Craig was playing with Sir Moz.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just in a daze now. I'm now looking forward to hearing Craig and Alan White playing. Didn't think I'd be saying that sentence.
On this last tour of Ireland, we played Playboys,
right,
and we played Ask as well. It's Alan singing and playing guitar. Day on the bass, who used to play with Morrissey, of course. Spencer Cobrin, who played drums with him for ages as well, and Gustavo Manzo.
Oh yes,
who played with Morrissey as well. So everyone there has had this Smiths or Morrissey connection. All done bits of writing, so we all played certain songs which would have a connection for each of us.
All got your stripes, and as from an audience perspective, it's well, how would you describe that as an analogy? Like a picnic of...
I mean, it's not a tribute thing at all. But
No.
You know, because it was a new thing with Alan, and, you know, Alan loves the songs as well. I would do it, and, you know, the people loved it as well. The crowd loved it, so it was more for them. You know, it's great seeing them enjoy us doing those songs.
Well, look, we wish you all the best with the projects that you've got coming up. It's been an absolute coup for us.
It has.
You've been really generous with your time.
No, you're welcome. It's been a pleasure for me, David. It's hard enough to get me to do normal interviews. Really, I've never been a fan of doing them.
Hopefully, we've been a bit different to what you would have normally done.
Yeah, you've been great.
All right, man. Thank you,
Craig Gannon. You've been a hero. Thank you so much.
No problem. It's been a pleasure.
So this is Last of the International Playboys from Morrissey. Craig, thank you so much.
Thank you, Craig.
Welcome.
Diana Ross stopped at the Miami for a Wimpy.
Okay.
There you go. We got very, very drunk one night, Matthew Jones and I, and actually wrote a stage production of Casablanca.
That's a lot of work in one night.
It was a lot of... We looked at it the next morning and went, this is a garbled mess.
Must have looked like an episode of Tiz was.
Yeah.
Take your pick, mate.
That's your ride, mate.
It's my bus.
That's your bus. I'm not getting on. Right, Craig, I might need to go and change my trousers after that story.
Go, sorry.
So appreciate that, mate. Thank you.
Go, sorry.